Alright, hello guys, I'm gonna make a new video. Hello, this is a video on the red versus blue button moral dilemma. So what is the red versus blue button debate? It's very simple, actually. Basically, everyone in the world goes to a private, has to take a private vote by pressing red or blue button. If you press the red button, you survive no matter what happens. However, if you go to the blue button, if less than 50% of the world clicks blue, all blue button clickers die. So if more than 50% of the people press the blue button, everyone survives. If less than 50% presses the blue button, they all will die. Now, what are the sides of the argument? Red believes or argues for one thing, or actually two, and it's the personal response. It's actually just mainly based on the personal responsibility over one's life, and the unchangeable nature of humans, that they'll naturally be selfish. However, blue thinks that human nature can be altered, and that you can change people through altruism. No, change human nature through altruism, aka empathy, or social cohesion slash responsibility. Right? So, who's right?
I fucking love science.
You may think to yourself, who is the right person here?
Imagine way back in the past, thought that storms were caused on top of a mountain, and
Alright, who's the right person in here? There are pros and cons to each and every argument made here, where the people should have a selfish responsibilities to themselves and other people. Red thinks that people, even if a lot of blue people die, the world will eventually figure it out and we'll just progress, positive Darwinism, aka. While blue thinks we can all unite together and end this terror experiment thing, whatever it's called. Right? It's not really a debate based on facts, but rather based on this debate between Aristotle and Socrates, where Aristotle thought that human nature, society's best ran when controlling human nature to some degree. Oh hey, we should reward people who make bread, reward people who make meat, reward people who make ovens, so that they can continue to make ovens so everyone can have dinner. Meanwhile, blue thinks you can educate and basically propagandize people into believing that you should do X or you should do Y or you should do Z. Right? Right. So, what's next? I think, at least this is my opinion, the real point of this experiment, moral dilemma, is something else that's not even relating to this book. I don't think either answer is right or wrong. This is referencing, and I'm talking about the book Fall of the West, that speaks of all civilizations having two phases, summer and winter, where each seasons are characterized by different properties and requirements from the people living in said civilization. So, what is summer? Summer is the season of social cohesion, where people are oftentimes more artistic, right? The success is not determined by tangible results, but rather the happiness of the collective. Meanwhile, winter is the opposite. It's less altruistic and it is more selfish, where results are determined by selfish gains and, you know, and art is not as cared about, but rather things like markets, things like education halls, and things that just produce stuff like like studying technology, science, engineering, etc., etc. So, which side represents which side? The red button is a representation of the right wing, often thinking about libertarianism and anti-slatism, which are like the two core beliefs of the right wing. It is more fitting into the whole like winter, where like one has to do practical stuff and like has to weigh the pros and cons of a situation. That situation being the whole two-button debate bullshit, right? Ah, fuck. I hate how loud these retards are being. Whatever. So the red button is a representation of the right wing, in my opinion. Rather, where people have a responsibility over themselves, and that society runs on individuals, which is kind of like basically libertarianism, right? Now, what does the blue button represent? In my opinion, it is the opposite of everything that red button stands for. It is the idea that, that social cohesion destroys the individual's human rights, or the individual's responsibility is not as important as the social cohesion responsibility. Meaning, if someone, for example, killed themselves, the blame isn't on the person that killed themselves, it's on society for not stopping them from killing themselves. Kinda like that. It's defined by artistry, social cohesion, success defined by happiness and creativity, stuff like that. Anything that's leaning towards social living, or like a very like cohesive society kind of aligns with the blue button. That idea. The idea that the human nature can be changed with enough education, with enough brainwashing, you can make humans good. Now, I think that blue button clickers are kind of smarter, quote unquote. They're a lot more educated and they're a lot more emotionally intelligent. However, that's why they lose. Now, you may be confused about what I just said, and it sounds kind of unrealistic, but that's the thing. The right wing is so dumb that it says the simplest stuff, which accidentally makes them correct most of the time, and the opposite is for them. These people, the left, the blue button clickers, their thoughts are very complex, right? Like, for example, let's take communism. If I say communism is a moneyless, classless society, and I just say, oh, it's these three things, someone's gonna say, no, but you didn't read the book, right? And we hear that a lot when it comes to debating lefties, right? You have to know their stuff, you have to think about their stuff, you have to engage in their propaganda, basically, right? And the main reason why their propaganda is really hard to understand and really hard to think about and just really filled with fallacies is because of metacognition. Their thoughts aren't straightforward. It's not like a web connection. It's, instead of having a web connection between different hundreds of different thoughts that lead to one thing, that connect to a certain thing, their thought is just one big, squiggly jig that leads to communism, right? So, like, their thoughts aren't straight. They're very scribbly. They're very complex, rather than relying on like simple thoughts that combine together to make us to make something complex, which makes thinking about thinking, which is metacognition, harder, right? When you have an easy thought, for example, free enterprise. Oh, why should we have free enterprise? For fair trade. Why should we have fair trade? Because it will allow people to benefit from stuff working with their human nature. Why is why is that? Because people have like an incentive that's selfish. You know, like you get the point. And I'm not providing a good example, and I know it's not a good example, but you can like have that thought with yourself, right? And their thought foundation, the blue button clickers on the left, have a thought foundation that's very complex, which stops them from being able to have metacognition. It's quite literally the representation of the the IQ graph, the bell curve. They're like, oh, the 70 IQ motherfuckers will say, I pick red. The 100 IQ midwits say, I'll pick blue. And then like the 150 IQ motherfuckers, they'll pick red because um, because they think about thinking, right? They think about thinking about simple thoughts, which makes it really easy to do, and just really makes it normal. Unlike the opposite side, which has which can't think about their own thoughts because their own thoughts are super, or because their thought foundation is really really hard to understand. And I already mentioned this, but I'm mentioning it again. It's no. It's shown by the ultra complex wordings that utterly fails when using simple words. This is no different with communism. For example, Marx theory, Leninism, Stalinism, Maoism, etc. You're right. Because their thoughts, when made simple, looked ridiculous. And when the thoughts looked ridiculous, nobody wanted to vote for them. So they intentionally gatekept their words. They made like the whole, super complex wordings and shit when you read the books. And that's what makes it really hard to summarize your thoughts. And makes, people that don't understand communism follow communism. And that's why a lot of people who are into the blue button always add hypotheticals to the hypotheticals, right? They add fallacies to the stuff. Man, I'm fucking raw dogging this, huh? Well, now what are my thoughts about this thing? What does this chud think? What does this soy chud think? I am a red clicker, right? I believe at this point in history only 10% will be blue clickers. Just scratch that I said this. I don't care if they live or died anymore. I've been radicalized. Fuck these motherfuckers. Please go. Please don't debate me. Just go on Twitter, Zitter, whatever you want to call it for that. There's a lot of people willing to debate red versus blue. I'm done with this shit. I hate this. Grr, I hate fun. Anyways, thanks for hearing me out. I'm gonna make more videos about more shit. Yeah. Ugh. This was annoying to make. Whatever.